Exposed.
Oh, Mike.
Which is funny because I'm blocked by him, but yet he still somehow got a screenshot of me to post on his
Well,
page.
everybody has their alt accounts. I mean, I hear this. I hear you're running a Michael Lofton alt account or something.
Sure. Yeah.
All right,
Oh,
so
man.
I have it here. I sent it to the WhatsApp. All right. Are you a hopeful Catholic or a prophet of doom? The furious response by the Pope's critics after he said in January that he hopes hell is empty might offer some clues. Regardless of the denomination or sect, insisting on Massa Damnata, which is, the damnation of everybody, seems to be a sign of a pessimistic rigorism that sadly infects many religiously observant people and communities. Even though the Catholic Church allows us to hope for the salvation of others, including non-Catholics, unbaptized infants, or those who die by suicide, even permits us to hope that hell is empty, this hope is condemned by traditionalists and other rigorists as dangerous or even heretical. These prophets of doom apparently think that a constant and acute fear of eternal damnation is necessary for living a life of virtue and good morals, and that the church would be best served by instilling this fear in its members. So Mike had called this spiritual. Let me see. He called it. Where is it? I want to find exactly what he said.
I love how he's using the term prophets of doom from John the 23rd.
Just, he's the first pope. He's the first pope.
So if we're being compared to the Fatima children, I guess I can't be mad at that, right?
I'm gonna let Anthony pull up what he wants to pull up, but whenever
I'm
about to go off because there's so many theological problems in here that I can correct.
Good. This is perfect. Okay, so he said we don't know who is going to hell. We obviously shouldn't take salvation for granted, but we also shouldn't spiritually blackmail people in order to coerce them into professing a faith that they really don't believe or want to follow. Okay, Mike, there's so much wrong in that statement there.
Christ spiritually blackmailed everyone, guys.
It's not all right, but don't even be condescending about it. Let's try to explain this in a way because it's not about spiritual blackmail. This is it's a matter of whether something is true or not.
Exactly.
And objectively. If Christ is going through the Gospels and telling us about gnashing of teeth and talking about Gehenna over and over and over, for us to change that to sound more easy for people, like I remember saying to somebody one time, would you rather believe a comforting lie because it makes you feel better, or would you rather know the truth? Because if something is a lie, it has absolutely nothing salvific about it. It's I know the truths are hard to handle at times, but there's also a level of like Joshua Charles says here, he says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. As many of the church's greatest saints have observed, the spiritual life often begins in fear and ends in love as we grow in virtue. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, ends in perfect love, casts out all fear. But if such necessary fear is dismissed, then true love is no longer possible. So I said also softening the teachings of the church has been catastrophic. The good news is only good if you know what the good news is saving you from. Like, you need to know the bad news in order for the good news to mean anything. So
exactly.
what we've done in our culture is tell people everybody goes to heaven. And I see it all around me. People are constantly looking at, like, I have a Catholic friend. He's from Honduras. I work with the guy, and I was talking about what I'm giving up for Lent, and he goes, yeah, but it's not about what you give up for Lent. Like, you look around you, you think God's just going to send everybody to hell. Like, this is the mentality people have. It's like they see everybody else doing things, and nobody is telling them, no. If you continue on this path, you are going to end up in hell. The gods you chase in this life, you will chase for all eternity. If you want nothing to do with God now, what makes you think you'll want anything to do with him in the next life?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Nick. I know you got a lot to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make this as brief as possible because I hate hogging
No, don't
time,
be brief. I love when you.
I'm gonna. I don't want to say this in a mean way, but I'm going to end this man's whole career because there's so many theological problems in this right here.
Well, you gotta
that
understand the
has to
people
be
that
corrected.
read it don't care about the theology.
So I'm going to go full scholastic mode real quick. Okay, so number one, just look this main paragraph right here in the middle. There's so many errors. Starting off number one in the first phrase, even though the Catholic Church allows us to hope for the salvation of others. Okay, one of the condemned statements by Pius IX's syllabus of errors is that there is great hope of salvation for those who are outside of the Catholic religion. And right, that statement, right, the syllabus of errors, which is in conjunction with the document Quanta Cura by Pius IX, right? It's his document on the current errors on liberalism, etc. That is an infallible document, and that is the consensus of all of the manuals, which the manuals are part of the broader ordinary universal magisterium of the church. Number two, he says, including non-Catholics, okay, we've already addressed that, unbaptized infants, without opening up a massive can of worms, both the Second Council of Lyons and Florence are explicitly clear, and these are de fide dogma, right? This is the deposit of faith, that number one, right, all those who die with original sin only, right, descend down into hell, but their punishments are different, right? So we do know defeated, like dogmatically, number one, baptism is required for salvation in whichever mode it takes place, but that those who die even with original sin only go down into hell, but that hell, if you will, we don't know what it is. We just know that the punishments are different. So this statement right here, where he's saying the church allows us, this comes from ambiguous statements from post-conciliar popes that aren't taking the deposit of faith. Yeah, exactly. They're not taking these things into, I would say.
Nick, can I just jump in for one thing real quick? So, Rick, nobody is saying God sends you to hell. You choose hell, right? So, like I
think that's what that person's saying.
Well, he also says
never
maybe
mind.
hell is in the imagination, but
never mind, I'm wrong.
Okay, so look, if whatever fleeting pleasures you're chasing in your life that aren't God, right? Like you have men who are addicted to lust, and like when you really get into what Dante's talking about, the man who can't actually make a decision on whether God exists or not, like the man who can't make up his mind, he'll chase a white flag for all of eternity, a flag that stands for nothing, and he'll just chase it for all eternity. Whatever your fleeting pleasure is, that is a god, right? So all these gods in the pagan world were associated with temptations and spirits of temptation, right? So you have spirits of lust, you have spirits of envy, greed, all these things. Whatever your thing is that you're chasing in this life, you will chase that for all of eternity. It's not that God is going to punish you. I really see hell as, if you see God as a consuming or a burning fire, right? Your soul can only be before that fire if it's pure. Right. So that's why we have to go through purgatory, where God turns the heat down a little bit and he allows that sins that you're attached to burn off before you're fully in his presence. Hell is where God turns the heat way down because you're not in his presence, because to be in God's presence and not in a state of grace would be torture. It would take away your free will. Also, it would just be absolute torture to be in his presence when you don't want to be.
Yeah. The Fatima prayer here, Mike, is speaking of the souls in purgatory.
Well, yeah. Well, what I would even say is that, like, this prayer, right, goes to my next point, which is that the hope that hell is empty. Here's my main criticism of that. It's not that traditionalists are like, we just gleefully want people to be in hell. That is a massive straw man that's just, I think, intellectually dishonest.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Rather, the dogma of hell, that hell exists, and that those who die with original sin and mortal sin on their conscience go to it. Those are both dogmas. They both become practically useless. Why are they dogmas? They don't even have a practical application if this theory is correct. And then my final critique on this paragraph would be this phraseology of rigorous. This is like, I think in Catholic terms, something analogous to racism or sexism. Rigorism in moral theology is basically the belief system, and it's condemned by the church totally, that if you have several moral opinions, right, you're supposed to pick the harder one, even if there is like little to no support, if you will, from the saints or from the theologians around this argument for moral matters. That's not what traditionalists are arguing for. Traditionalists are looking and saying, hey, look, Our Lord himself says this in scripture, that few enter into the kingdom of God. And the vast majority of saints and doctors say the exact same opinion. So this is the majority opinion. And because it's in the scripture and because it's backed up by these dogmas of various ecumenical councils, you can't get away from the objective truth. Doesn't mean that we don't want people to be in heaven, but we have to go back to what has the church objectively taught in her magisterium. And that's why I think that this paragraph is loaded with lots of errors.
Not just loaded with errors. You're taking away meaning. Like if you like Mike, so if you're really curious why Jordan Peterson is such a phenomenon right now, it's because for 60 years people have been telling everybody, no, everything's easy, don't worry about it, everything's okay. Jordan Peterson comes out and he's like, clean your room. Like, do something challenging. Go pick up something heavy. Whatever the hardest thing you can think to do is, go do it. Young men need to hear things like this. Young men need to hear, if you do not get your act together, you will burn in hell.
Exactly.
Now, there may be temperaments that have a hard time hearing things like that, but not everybody has the same temperament as you, Mike. Like, there are young men, especially, like, my biggest criticism of the church right now is not fiducia supplicans. It's not any of the documents that came out of the Vatican. It's the abandonment of young men. It is that we are placating to women over and over. Women priests, women deacons. We got to put women in the sanctuary. Women. Women run the whole parish. I called the church. I went on Holy Week. I wanted to go to confession. I call the parish. Mary Ann in the parish answers the phone. I'm like, Mary Ann, listen, I need to get to confession before Easter. Is there any way you could ask the priest if I could come in and see him? Oh, there's no way he can see you. He's just got so much going on. I'm like, Mary Ann, can you please just go and ask the priest? Okay, hold on one second. She comes back. Yeah, he said he could see you. What time is available for you? Like, this is the thing that we have guarding our priests. These are the women that are running everything. If we keep ignoring young men, there is going to be a major problem. So there's another article that I was talking to Nick about, that there's been like this resurgence of baptisms in the church this year. Like, there was a high number of, Rob, the article's in there.
Yeah.
And this is all connected. And you could see it in the trad communities and you can see it in the Orthodox communities. There's a lot of young men coming into the church right now. I just watched a conversation between Peugeot and the guy who had that Unbelievable series, who was having conversations with guys like Tom Holland and stuff like that. But you're seeing, this is perfect to go into Dawkins too, because you had the new atheists telling everybody God's not real, God's not real, God's not real. And then all of a sudden, everybody decided to chuck God out. And then they come around and they find out that the Enlightenment and rationalism just doesn't do it for them. It's meaningless. So what you have is a bunch of young men finding some of these more ancient practices, saying, hey, this worked for our ancestors. Maybe this will work for us. It's lighting a fire in them, and they're coming in with a new perspective on things. I hate to say it, Mike, but you have a very hippie mentality when it comes to the church. And it's not a schismatic thing. It's not two separate churches. It's just different ways that people are seeing like ways to find meaning, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the thing is when you see the new atheists, they weren't even just saying, don't believe in God. They were saying, more religion bad. Religion's bad. It causes all these wars, all these poverty problems, all these corrupt priests, all these corrupt teachers, pastors, etc. They were basically blasting people in the Western world 24/7 about the evils of religion. And then as people embrace secularism and the Enlightenment ideal, they practice it for, a decade and a half. And then you see a ton of Zoomers online saying, wow, like, our dating lives are completely messed up. Our family lives are completely messed up. And particularly from young men, it's like the world hates us. Everybody's blaming us for everything. The only people that are being basically put on the pedestal as gods and goddesses are people who engage in homosexual activity, right? There's nothing for us. But then what happens? Right? Oh, well, there's a massive amount of migration from certain Middle Eastern countries into Western nations. And then all of a sudden, the new thing, which is starting to take over as the culture, is a 7th century Bedouin faith called Islam, where, it demands, if you will, a certain amount of rigorism, right? But then it completely alters the entire culture as well. And so now the atheists are, flipping out that
but it's weird.
that they're not going to be able to deal with the nice Christians.
But it is this. All right, so let's play the Dawkins clip, because this is perfect segue into the Dawkins clip. Let's play the Dawkins
You wanted
clip.
the other article.
Throw the Dawkins clip. This is just too good, because this is all connected. I really see the whole thing with Mike Lewis's point leading into the Dawkins clip, and just the meaning crisis, everything Jordan Peterson's been talking about. I even have a Jordan Peterson clip that I want to send you, where he's talking about existing on the margins. He won't become Catholic because he's existing on the margins. That I think that's an important conversation. I'm not saying you're actually a hippie, Mike. I know you're my age. Me and you are the same age. What I'm saying is, it's a very soft way to look at it. Mike, this might be a good conversation for me and you to have on screen, because we come from two totally different worldviews, and it might just be a good conversation for us to maybe try to see each other's perspective. Because I know you have a way of othering people who don't see things the way you do. I saw you went on a rant recently where you're just like, I cut trads off totally. I can't even have conversations with these people. They're totally different than me. And that, I think, is the scariest thing in the world. Like, we cannot start viewing people as other. There needs to be these conversations where we can have, we figure out where the other person's coming from. So, all right, let's play this Dawkins clip real quick.
Well, I must say I was slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it wouldn't matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful.
Well, which brings me to my supplementary point. Which
Pause
is
it real quick. We'll get into the
know,
Islam thing next. Like he does not see the absurdity of what he's saying.
Exactly. He's philosophically insane.
It's just totally preposterous. This guy spent his life convincing people that there is no God, without even a thought that every civilization in human history had gods, right? So aside from Islam coming about, there's something in humanity that, we as Christians would say God left a God-sized hole. He, as Augustine says, right? He is made like a God-shaped hole in our hearts, so that our hearts are restless until we rest in him. But even not from a Christian perspective, you could see all around us, the atheist movement gave rise to this rainbow thing that's coming up, right? This trans movement that's coming up, that all because there's so much religious symbolism and all those things. What do you think they mean when they're talking about what was some of the things they were saying? They're like, trans is divine, things like that. Like, this is all religious symbolism coming back in. If you look back to the ancient world, every single culture had religion. When you tell people, oh, I think it's a good thing that people aren't practicing Christianity anymore, but I don't want to get rid of our cathedrals. If people don't care about something, they're going to get rid of it, and something else will replace it. And the fact that he's not even hearing the words out of his own mouth and not seeing how preposterous it is what he's saying, it baffles me.
It baffles me too. There's three things that come to mind. One, the fact that you're right. So scholastics call this God-sized hole, and how every culture has been religious, they call this, in a certain broad sense, natural theology. And it's actually great proof for the existence of God, for the fact that it's not coincidental that every single culture has been religious. That just does not make sense. The fact that cultures separated by thousands of miles all happen to be religious. So clearly that's at least a proof for the existence of God. Number two, he likes the beautiful stuff, the cathedrals, the smells and bells, if you will, right? He finds them beautiful, but yet he can't tell you where beauty comes from or how it's objectively beautiful, right? And so that again goes to show you his philosophical inconsistency, right? He is just falling back on his own probably enlightenment rationalism. And third and final, he likes the Christian cathedrals, and if you will, Christians more than Muslims, because the Christians nowadays are so effeminate, they're so weak, and they're so lukewarm. They will be spewed out of the mouth of the Lord, and he knows that he can get away, right, with saying his type of stuff in their type of nation, as opposed to, as he's saying, Ramadan's being celebrated now, and if it becomes majority in the UK, maybe I need to move over to the United States or to Canada or something and escape.
So there's a video out of the UK of a guy, a regular English guy. He's a janitor, and he goes to eat his lunch, and a Muslim guy comes up to him and he goes, slams his fist down on the table. You don't eat during Ramadan. And the guy just takes his lunch, folds it up, and goes and walks away. It's like, you're in your own country, you're not Muslim, and you're being told you have to observe Ramadan. These people, this is the fruits of your labor. I'm sorry that you have buyer's remorse, but I have no sympathy for Richard Dawkins. I have sympathy for the Gavin Ashendens and the Mark Sitzios and the Calvin Robinsons. Those guys are doing what they can to salvage their culture. But the people that are lukewarm, the Christians that are lukewarm, and the atheists who push this on everybody, like, you are the most despicable people. You threw out your birthright, you threw out your heritage, you threw out your culture, and you gave it over to them. You gave it over to this new thing that's popping up, and this new thing is going to be worse than Islam. I'm telling. Look, I sent Rob a thing that we can't even read on here. There's a Reddit thread where the people in that rainbow ideology are talking about becoming martyrs or going on mass sprees, like there was down in Nashville, the Nashville spree. This is what's coming, and people don't recognize it. Religion is coming back. Now, is it going to be Christianity, or is it going to be something else? I think that the church has to die in order for, because the state that, I mean, just think about the things we're talking about tonight. The church is in such a messy state. I think that there will be some versions of Christianity that last through whatever is coming next, but I think the thing Mike Lewis is talking about, I don't think it lasts. It can't. It doesn't challenge people enough to actually do anything to live out a life of Christian virtue. It's not forming saints. Telling people that everybody goes to heaven is not making saints.
Exactly. When there's future, I'm trying to speak at least simply here on YouTube, but when there's future massacres from the rainbow community that are inflicted upon Christians in cathedrals because they're trying to be these martyrs, right? Do you really think that we need to be promoting things like fiducia at that point, whenever stuff like this goes on? It's clearly not going to be a thing in 50 to 60 years. I have full confidence that the church will be taken over by a bunch of conservative young men. Let's pray to God. But yeah, no, this is buyer's remorse that they're having over in the UK and in Canada and places like this. And that's the point. If you do this, the chickens are going to come home to roost, and this time they're coming home from the land of the Saracens, and it's not going to be pretty.
But not just that, even the anti-Semitism stuff popping up, like Ben Shapiro is doing more harm to his people than he can imagine, because he is making the Daily Wire, but he's just doing harm to his cause, because he's coming down so heavy-handed with everything that he's saying that it's making people go, what is this, man? Like, you're just making people wake up.
The fact that an aid convoy was hit yesterday and someone reported on that, he called it blood libel.
Yeah,
everything's blood libel now.
It's just
crazy.
Absurd.
I don't know if you guys watch the Patrick Bet David show. I'll tune in every once in a while.
Yeah, they're calling it the Israeli Wire now, right?
Yeah, they'll call it that. And it's I forget what the comedian was that they were like, they interviewed him a while back, but then they were watching a clip that he put out, and basically they were showing this clip of Ben Shapiro. He has all these commercials, right, where he's just like, people, regardless of political party, they're fearful of losing their job because of their political views, right? We're not going to have this at the Daily Wire, right? Facts don't care about your feelings, freedom of speech, all of that. But then explicitly now, it is clear that Candace was fired because of her political beliefs. Yeah. Right, which aren't even that edgy for Christians.
No, they weren't. And she was very subtle about everything. And all right, listen, we're at 1 hour and 3. We have 387 people on YouTube watching live right now. I think that might even be a record on YouTube. Not like we have 793 total watching, but there's almost 400 of you watching on YouTube. Everybody, please hit like. We are trying to grow this show. I do think this is a very interesting show. I'm going to try and get Mike Lewis on, and I want to have like a real conversation with him and try to see from his point of view. I think him and I have good temperaments. Well, I think I have a good temperament to talk to Mike. I've seen
a live Twitter thread.
Well, I think it'll be an interesting conversation. I think Mike knows I have enough goodwill that I would never sandbag him or anything like that. It might be an interesting conversation. We're going to go over to locals, and we're going to discuss some things we can't discuss over here. If you guys are not subscribed to our locals, that's where we have a lot more fun than we do here. We're going to discuss the Trad Recovery Conference, their commercial that they came out with. And we're going to discuss some inside baseball of why Nick Cavazos is enemy number one at Meaning of Catholic right now.
Apparently.
Mike, we'll talk later. I'm glad that you see our show as reasonable enough for you to tune in on occasion, because I know you do pop in the chat on once in a while. So we will, Don said Mike pretending he's not a locals member.
Oh man.
Let me tell you something. I saw Brian Holdsworth popped a comment up on one of our videos today. I'm always surprised at the people that do watch our show. Because every once in a while, look, the people that everybody watches pop in and check our show out sometime. I think this was a very good show. It's going to be hard to cut up into clips because it was just kind of one continuous stream of consciousness. It's going to be difficult to clip this one.
You are a master of stream of consciousness.
Yes.
Well, consciousness is maybe a stretch, but
I'm sorry, Nick. I hogged up a lot of your time. I know you were itching. You look like you were chomping at the bit. You wanted to jump in
after last night. He's used to it.
Oh no, man. It's all good.
All right, so we're gonna go over to locals, guys. We'll see you.